Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Alt Kings podcast. I'm your host, Tate, and today I have the honor of speaking with Tyler Boone. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing well. So, it's a pleasure to host you. You're doing big things for the space. You're an engineer, you're an artisan, you're an entrepreneur, you're the founder of the TI Project, and the host of the Pathway to Freedom podcast. So, first, the real question is, what can you not do?
I'm bad at remembering names, so that's for sure one of them. There's a host of things that I'm definitely not good at, and I try to stay in my lane. I'm not good at coding blockchain projects, so I didn't try to learn that on the fly and go and do that route because that was something I was considering. I knew I wanted to get into blockchain and be a part of this movement because I'm an investor myself and I believe in this space and I think that it's going places. And I knew I wanted to get involved, but I also knew that I didn't have much of a background on that side of things. But I did have a background in the kind of engineering side. So that's when I decided to merge the two together and do something different. And I'm really glad I went that route instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and do something that everyone else is doing. Yeah, that's what I would say to that. I
That's
feel like
amazing.
yeah, go ahead.
Regardless of what you can't do, you can do a lot of skilled things. So I'd love for you to now tell me about yourself. How'd you
Sure.
find yourself in crypto, investing into it and investing into digital assets?
Yeah, so the first whiff that I got of crypto was back in 2017 when all the craziness was happening with the mania of Bitcoin and I was in college at the time and my roommate and I were just watching it because it was fascinating. We didn't really know what the hell was going on, but we were excited about it and we threw a few $100 in just because there was the mania was going on and of course lost all of it in the subsequent
Of
crash that
course.
happened. And then I was like, that turned me off to it. I'm like, okay, this is all a scam. And then I just walked away. And I had heard about Bitcoin off and on in the years leading up to 2017, but didn't really think much about it. Heard the Bitcoin pizza story and all
Yeah.
that. But I didn't really understand it and I didn't try to understand it because I was busy with my own stuff and just moved on. But it wasn't until 2019 when at the time I was doing a startup and we were making an attachment for tractor trailers that would address the rear of the vehicle to improve their aerodynamic efficiency. And we were out there meeting a lot of different trucking companies and stuff like that. And one of the guys we had met in that process was the one who told me about XRP. He was the
Wow.
truck. Yeah, it was the craziest thing. We immediately clicked. My co-founder and I were just sitting in his office and we were talking about our solution and kind of what we were doing. And we just clicked with this guy. He's a younger guy who owned this company and we just really hit it off and just had great conversations and stuff and we became friends and we still talk to this day even though the startup kind of fizzled out. We moved on to other things and yeah, I don't even know what brought it up, but he was like, maybe when XRP moons, like this and that will happen. And I was like, what is XRP? And then he went on this whole thing about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. And yeah, so then I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, the more excited I got about it. It was like, all right, Brandon, you sold me on it. Yeah, that was a weird story, but it was interesting because I got invested around the end of 2019. At that point, I was so convinced that during 2020 it was going to just go crazy, and then at that point I would reinvest profits, start a company, do. I had all these plans, but I was going to wait until I had the capital, and then I could just go in all in. I wouldn't need to give away any equity to a seed investor or anything like that. I could just go full in. And of course, 2020 came and went, and we basically were at the same price. And then we had that like short spike up in 2021, I believe, went up to whatever it was, almost $2 or so, and then came back down to where it's
Yeah.
comfortable. And it's just been that way for all these years now. And 2 years ago is when I started and I know this is getting into the next question probably, but that's when I decided to actually start my business, even though crypto hadn't really moved yet. I was like, you know what, it's now or never. I'm just going to go ahead and do something. And that's when Thai Project started.
It's
So,
honestly probably the perfect time to start Thai Project as well because you're
yes.
building in a bear, you're starting to build more reputable exposure, building sort of a community
Yeah.
backing you, and it
Yep.
all falls properly because once that bull comes back around, you'll have already established a pretty strong foundation for a community, and then they're able to help spread that word to a greater cause. And that is the transition. So the Thai Project produces custom high-end made to order aerospace grade titanium and stainless steel merchandise for brands, crypto businesses,
Yep.
NFT projects, and more.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Thanks,
So,
man.
My first question regarding that is what I guess we've already gotten into it. What
Sure.
ignited that fire for you to start TI project in this space after you
Yeah.
found crypto, you were reintroduced to it after some trials and triumphs? What brought that to life? How'd you make that connection with aerospace grade titanium
Yeah.
and what connected the dots?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I grew up in a household that my dad was an entrepreneur my whole life. And he makes wedding rings for a living out of titanium. So we have that in the family. It's just like a niche
Yeah.
that we're drawn to. And it's just in today's market and everything, people are just drawn to aerospace grade titanium. It just sounds really cutting edge and really cool. And it is. It's a great material. It's fantastic as far as like durability and wear resistance, and it's hypoallergenic, so you could wear it as a ring for people who have allergies to gold and other precious metals. They could wear a titanium ring and not have any issue with it. So there are some reasons why he went that route. He originally actually made bike parts out of titanium for like road and mountain biking. And then he found out that the scrap metal left over from making bike parts, he could make a ring out of, and he would take rings with him, just simple rings, single profile, nothing special. But he would take these titanium rings with him to these bike shows that he would go to. And he would sell them for 20, $30 a piece or whatever, and would sell out no matter how many he brought. He would just bring a bunch of different sizes, and he would sell out every single time. And he was like, there's something to this ring thing, and there's a lot less material here. We could probably be a lot more profitable. And that's when he shifted the focus of the business over to the rings. And he's been doing that for 25 years now, I think, almost my entire life. And yeah, so I just grew up in the shop. I watched him work. It had a big impact on me growing up. I just had that entrepreneurial mindset baked in from an early age because it was just the way that my parents were. I think that was a massive part of all of this. And he would always tell me things like, and I remember this from elementary school age, I believe, because he said, if you can make something that people want and you can accept money over the internet, the combination of those two things means that you will always have a job. You'll always be able to make money. You'll always be able to support yourself and your family. And that stuck with me going
Yeah.
all the way through my life. And I, knowing that about myself and this draw to entrepreneurship, like I've had multiple attempts of starting companies, and obviously running a company is not easy. 96+% of them fail within the first year or 5 years or whatever the stat is. It doesn't even matter. It's just the vast majority fail. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The market is very brutal sometimes, and that's just the way it goes. Unless you can find a viable product that people actually want or that solves a problem, you're going to have a very hard time in the market. And so anyway, I've had multiple attempts, and there were a number of things that I did wrong, and I learned a lot of lessons along the way. And the Thai project is really the first time that I've had a truly viable and successful business. And it's been growing like crazy. I started it about 2 years ago. And like I said, I'm really glad I did and didn't wait until crypto started moving before I made my moves, because right now I've made connections to virtually every major XRP influencer. Like I'm connected to a lot of these companies now. People are asking me for introductions, which I've never been that person. Like I've always been on the other end of the deal there. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm just saying that to hopefully inspire people
Yeah.
who are in a similar situation of they might have a skill set or something that they've been working on their whole life that they might feel like they could apply to this space or something. And I'm just encouraging people to do something, to get out there and do something on the side. You might have a full-time job right now, but on the side, you can do anything between the hours of 6 p.m. and midnight that
Yeah.
you can work on yourself and start something. And then it can eventually get to the point where you could quit your job and do it full time, which is actually what I was able to do not that long ago, just a couple weeks ago. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah,
It's a
it's a
big
little
step in the right
scary.
direction. You can now devote a lot more time to your
Yeah.
passions, to your goals, and to what actually makes you happy. So at the end of the day, that's it's
Yeah.
amazing to hear. I think that what you said, people take the time from 6 to midnight to focus on their dreams and their goals and their aspirations. It's simply just 1% every day in my eyes.
Yeah.
If you excel 1% every day, you're making that progressive growth that will over time exponentially help you become a better individual and achieve what you want to achieve. But
Yeah.
besides that point, it's about choosing what you do after you get off work and be wise about what you do. It's
Yeah.
not about going home, relaxing, watching TV shows for 4 hours straight. No, you actually have to put in that work, make those connections, and maybe it's just hopping on one call out an afternoon with somebody that's new in the space. And that's what the great part about this podcast is. I'm able to connect
Yeah.
myself with tons of people in this space and build those relationships and networking opportunities that will over time grow and progress into things that potentially could benefit everyone.
Yeah.
But besides that point, I think it's great what you're doing. Congratulations on being able to quit your job, and congratulations on sticking with it for over 2 years now. That's a
Mhm.
very consistent accomplishment that you deserve an applause for.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And to your point about the 1% better, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people get real caught up on what other people are doing and they try to compare themselves to other people, and they might get real critical of themselves or down on themselves because they're not there yet. And I just think that's not the right way of going about it, because it's, and I did say this in the Pathway to Freedom podcast, which we'll probably talk about later, but a lot of people are looking at others who are like 15 steps ahead of them, and they're
Yep.
comparing themselves to where they're at now as to where they are now. And it's just so defeating because
Yes.
I'm never going to get there. And you can, it's just that it might happen in 15 years or 20 years from now if you're consistent. But the 1% improvement daily for 15 years is what it takes to get there. Not if I work super hard for 3 months, can I get there? It doesn't work that way at
Not at
all.
all.
The compounding effect, and I'm sure this audience is super familiar with that aspect when it comes to investing, but also in just everyday life. Decisions that you make daily, habits that you have, if you're consistent and you are doing that 1% improvement daily, that over the span of 20 years is an improvement that's honestly hard to comprehend. It's really amazing what that can
It's
do.
moving. If you think about it, in your case, you've been sitting by your dad while he's been in the shop developing all these different titanium pieces of jewelry, and you've
Right.
just been sitting there observing and
Yep.
absorbing pretty much all of the information that he's ever given to you. And then that's what you turned into the TI project. So you now produce dog tags, keychains, braided chains, bottle
Yeah.
openers.
Mhm.
And what my favorite thing is the asset recovery key plates. Now you can say goodbye to paper and
Yeah.
actually have something physical that
Right.
probably will never be destroyed or tarnished,
Yeah.
as well as medallions, rings, and so much
Sure.
other great things.
Yeah.
And I love how you're able to really connect with other projects and stuff in this space and make them custom things as well.
Yeah, man, it's. I think that there's a massive advantage to what you just said because I make this stuff in house here in the U.S. and make things to order too. That opens up this really unique opportunity, especially with the arc plates, where we can work with various brands and then make things that are specific to their brand, specific to their audience. That's something that not a lot of other companies are able to offer, especially on the asset recovery key plate side of things, because to be honest with you, a lot of those guys, what they're doing is they're having their stuff made overseas. They're buying
Yep.
them in large quantities and then they're marking them up like tremendously in order to get that money back quickly. But if they wanted to collaborate with a decent wallet or a Hashpack or a Ledger or a Uphold or whatever, then they wouldn't really be able to offer branded versions for a reasonable price because they'd have to, or a reasonable time frame, because they'd have to have a new design made and then they'd have to send it over and then have a whole bunch made, invest all that material up front, and then wait for 3 months to get it. And it's just like by that point, you lost the deal.
Pointless. Yeah.
So what we can do is offer branded arc plates, just have a separate file for the laser, hit the button, and then boom, you have a whole new product using the same blank, the same material that we normally have anyway. So we can still achieve economies of scale from the standpoint of the material that we use, but the designs can vary. And so, like with Hashpack, we have a Hashpack branded arc plate that and Hashpack is a wallet, a hot wallet, like the Zum wallet for Hedera.
Yep.
And they've got a massive following. I don't know how many millions, like plural, of users they have, but it's ridiculous. The
So
size.
seamless to be able
Yeah,
to onboard to Hedera, especially with Hashpack being allowed to. You can onboard now with just your email. You don't necessarily private keys, which is great to onboard more people.
Yeah, so imagine you and I have the call with him on Friday. So this
Nice.
isn't all confirmed yet, but it's the idea. We've got it designed out. I think it looks really cool. And the guys, King Solomon is introing me to Hedera, the company itself, Hedera, and as well as Hashpack and some other players in the space. One of the calls today was with Citadel Wallet, and they
Yep.
are a part. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so you're familiar
Yeah,
with
I've hosted Citadel. I've hosted Hashpack. I
Perfect.
know all about them all.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
didn't know if this was an XRP channel or if it was
No, it's the alt kings, my guy. We talk about all the altcoins.
perfect. Okay,
Yep.
awesome. But yeah, so they were very interested today, and so that was really cool, and hopefully we can like land a solid deal. And yeah, and then Decent Wallet was on Monday that we had a call with, and they're super interested. I met the CBO in Austin for the on XTC conference,
That's
and
big.
I had yeah, dude,
It's
wild,
big.
isn't it wild?
It's insane.
Yeah, so it really is boggling the mind. And then Uphold is another one that is interested because they're coming out with the Vault offering in I think it's next month actually, and that's essentially like a hybrid of self custody and institutional, like where people are used to calling their banks when they lose their credit card or whatever, and then the bank can cancel it and then send them a new one, right? With crypto, obviously, it doesn't work that way. You
Yeah.
lose your keys and you're screwed. It's over. So Uphold is trying to do something a little bit in between where they get the private key and they divide it up into three separate keys. And you need two of those keys in order to actually sign the transactions or move the wallet, whatever. And so they give you two of them and then they keep one. And so that way, if you lose one of your keys, you can still call Uphold and they'll be able to work with you and then you can sign the transaction, do whatever you need to do with the funds. My pitch to them was like, okay, we have this arc plate that could work where we could have a bundle of two arc plates that you guys would offer through your platform when someone's onboarding onto the Vault product. Then there'd be like a checkbox, like upsell type thing. They've already got the credit card out.
Yeah.
At that point, they're already paying for the service. So it's, do you want to spend an extra, whatever the number is, $75 or whatever it is, and get two arc plates that you can then secure those keys on so that you're more likely to keep them forever. And I think so many people would absolutely check that box and say yes. And
Definitely.
Uphold, it makes so much sense for them to say, why not? Because I've got the thing designed already. I can make it right now. We can list it today. So it's just a really interesting position that we're in right now. And so I think at this point, the strategy is to just go hit as many of these wallets and companies as possible and just get that snowball going. Because once Decent's on board, once Hashpack's on board, once Uphold's on board,
It's only up.
then we got Ledger in the
Yeah.
wings. We've got
It's
all
only
the
up.
Trezor, you name it, it's all there. And then I think ArcPlate, which by the way stands for Asset Recovery Key Plate.
Nice.
I think ArcPlate is going to be the de facto standard when it comes to this type of product. It's the most affordable in the market. It's a very lean, efficient design on purpose, just to keep the cost as far down as possible to pass that on to the customers. And I think it makes sense. And everybody that I've talked to so far about it has been really optimistic and been like, yeah, this actually makes sense for our business. I don't want to put the cart before the horse or anything because it's still early days and we're still in these early talks, but I'm feeling good, man. I think this can really go absolutely wild. And that's why after Austin, when I was there just a couple weeks ago, that was when I decided, like, after that weekend, I just went into work on Monday and quit my job. Put in my 2 weeks. It was like, dude, I have to go all in on this because it could genuinely get so crazy that if I'm not prepared, I
Be
could
in
really,
backlog for who
I
knows
could,
how long.
yeah, I could ruin the business that way too. And there's many stories of businesses failing, not because they had no money or no customers or no demand, but because of the other extreme where they had way too much all at once and they weren't prepared for it. And then
Yep.
they died because they had the liquidity. There's a lot of issues that could happen. Your bank could freeze your funds because it's like, where all this money come from? Like, what's going on here? And then you don't have enough money to pay for this and that. And then things are taking too long and you can't hire people fast enough.
And then competition sweeps in and steals all your money.
Yes. Yeah. And there's so many things that can go wrong. And so that's why I'm thinking like, okay, I need to be as lean as possible, make sure all of the fixtures, the setups for the machines, everything is just as optimized as possible, automated if I can, and
Nice.
just make it as simple as possible where if I bring in somebody and hire them, I have like an instruction sheet. This is exactly what you do. And then day one, they can get started and make arc plates to spec. And that's the goal. And I think that's super achievable. But at this point, it's all just in here, and it hasn't happened yet. But
Yeah.
I absolutely think it will. And if and when it does, it could really get crazy fast. So I
That's
think,
incredible.
yeah, and I think ArcPlate is going to be ArcPlate right now is the tip of the spear. for
Yeah.
Tide Project. It's what I lead with now because it's a product that just makes sense. It's easy to talk about, it's easy to explain, and it solves a genuine problem that people in this space are having right now because crypto is a paradigm shift from banking and to traditional way we do things. So it's a product that once you show it to people and explain it, it's like, oh yeah, I get that. Where do I get one? That's
Yeah.
the response I've gotten so far. So it's okay. Here it is. Here's the link. Go for it. But like that's where I'm at with that. And then, like I said before, with being able to brand these things to various companies, that's a game changer because I don't think any of our competition can do that. And the competition that we have, there's a lot of solutions out there that you could pick from. A lot of them have moving parts, which I think is a waste. A lot of them are somewhat similar, but they're just literally triple the price of what we're doing. There's no real reason to have it made out of titanium. It's 304 stainless steel, works the same way, and it's a cheaper material, but it still has corrosion resistance. It's very
Yeah.
durable. There's really no reason to go. Titanium sounds cool, like I named my business after it, but like I was trying to think in terms of how do we
Margins.
make this as efficient as possible?
Yeah.
And also, I do want to say this. So, arc plate is a concept that David Cowan invented. And he and I started our businesses at around the same time. And we met in a Twitter space of all things a couple years ago. And we immediately clicked, became friends. And he thought what I was doing was cool. And I thought what he was doing was super cool. And long story short, he was having these plates made out of China at the time, and he was a little bit worried about supply chain issues. I think COVID was happening, and we didn't know what was going to happen with Taiwan, and who knows. And so
Yeah, definitely.
we were just, he was like, "Hey man, I know you work with metal. Can you replicate my product and make it in house, and then maybe we can work together?" And so we hopped on a Zoom call and we were just drinking beer and I was like with the laser and I was making one in the background. We were just talking and then just a couple hours later, I'm like, "Is this what you're talking about?" I had a working product. And he's, "Dude, that looks better than the one I had made in China. So yeah, let's make it happen." And so that's when it started. And now he's been a point where he's wanting to take a step back and focus on like getting a job up where he's at. And he's, "Dude, you know what? As long as I can get my royalties from sales that you bring, like you can just have it. Just go
That's
for it."
incredible. A lot.
Yeah, so I'm like, damn, okay. And so that's not final. He needs to hear back on the job and everything like that. But he's been letting me handle things and he's been super. We hadn't even signed anything. It's just, we're just doing
Very
this.
leisure, but it's
Yeah,
trusted. It seems reliable, and you guys respect
yeah,
each other and understand each
absolutely.
other's values, so it pairs well. So they are laser engraved, though. That was going to be my next question: how they
Yep,
are made.
yep,
Do you
exactly.
have access to your dad's shop still? Is that what you're operating out of, or
I
what is
do.
it?
Yeah, I was actually there today and I made a ring there today. Actually, I don't know how well it'll show up on the camera, but this is a Zum wallet ring.
Nice. I'm verified.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
clean.
But yeah, I love it. I just designed it this morning and we made it. And so I learned the ropes on every step of the process, and now I'll be able to do these myself, start to finish. And so my dad will get his royalties on using the equipment and everything.
Yeah.
And it's because part of what is a big goal of mine is to help him out as well. Because like his business has taken a hit after COVID and everything, and there's a lot more competition now in the ring
Yeah.
business. And so it's not as easy as it once was. I remember when I was a kid and we had clotheslines wall to wall with clothespins that would just have orders on them. There'd be like 60 orders all at once with
That's
$100,
incredible.
multi $100 rings all going at once. And now it just really has dried up quite a bit from there. And part of what I was hoping to do with this brand was to like bring rings back into style, but have a crypto focus on them, obviously, but then support him that way. And he's really appreciative of that. And I'm thinking that we can genuinely do some really good numbers with the rings specifically going into the future, especially post, like you were mentioning this before. Once we get into the bull market, things are
Yeah.
going to be totally different than they are
Yeah.
right now.
There's going to be so much more demand and interest in pretty much everything that's been reputable and reliable for the last couple of
Yeah.
years and has that sort of backing them just with respect and reputation, of course. My
Yeah.
my next question to you, Tyler, would be what's your favorite product? What's the best product you've ever made and the most memorable?
Yeah, man. That's a good question. I want to say it's the most recent like dog tags that I'm doing. I was working with a guy who Crypto Panda is what he goes by on
Yeah.
Twitter. And
Yep.
yeah, he's a really good artist. And I paid him I think it was like $500 for a set of designs to make specifically for the dog tags, and they came out so good. And the sublimation technique that I'm using it's capable of 2,000 dots per inch of like just resolution, which is insane. Like 300 is like decently good quality, but
Yeah.
2,000 is ridiculous. And the artwork, because I'm not really a graphic artist. Like I can dabble a little bit here and there, but I couldn't really design anything that could really bring out the capabilities of this process. And so when he sent me these designs of the XRP astronaut floating around in space and all, they look so good.
Something crazy. This
Yeah,
logo is actually by Panda.
really.
Yep.
No way. I believe
Yep.
it. It looks good, man. So
Appreciate it.
you
Yeah.
did a
He
good
does
job.
great work, and he's been
Yeah.
on the show in the past, and
Oh, really?
we
Okay, I'll check
continue
it
to have
out.
a good relationship and stuff. And yeah, I'll always support him with really anything he does, and he'll always reciprocate the favor. And it's nice to have those sort of people in your back pocket and
Absolutely.
just be able to benefit and reciprocate values and help each other out in times of need.
I agree with that, man. And that's the sentiment I have as well. Like, I was just blown away at the amount of people that I've been able to meet over the last 2 years in this space, but also just the quality of people. Like, it's just been truly inspiring, honestly. Like, I have yet to, there's a couple bad actors here and there, but I've had just overwhelmingly positive relationships with virtually everybody that I've been talking to, especially in the bear market, because the scammers and stuff. What's the point? No one cares
Yeah.
anymore. Granted, you still see a ton of scams and stuff, but it's not like
Not
active.
nearly as bad.
Historic. I think it's just bots like going out and
Yeah.
doing things automatically, and it's not real people investing their own time into scamming people actively face to face or anything like that. And that being said, it's actually been quite great in the bear market to be networking and meeting people and building. Like going to these conferences, the XRP Vegas conference that happened just a couple months ago, the Onyx DC conference in Austin, this Ripple party coming up next week, I'm excited about. And then there's an event for Hello Future Live the week after in LA that I'm going to be going to. So
I'll
it's,
be all around the country.
yeah, dude, it's wild. I've never been to LA before. I've been to New York once, and that was like almost 10 years ago. So it is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
I had never been to Vegas before the Vegas event that we did for XRP. It's been a bunch of firsts, honestly. And it's been really cool just traveling and for business, writing it off as a business expense and kind of just meeting people and just enjoying their company. Just at the on XTC conference, for example, Dirk from Expector and
Oh
Ray
yeah.
Fuentes and like all the guys, we were just out partying, having a good old time,
Enjoying your
breaking
time.
bread.
Yeah.
Yeah, just breaking bread together and getting to know each other as humans instead of Twitter personalities or business owners or anything like that. It was more just like hanging out and just spending quality time and getting to know the person. And that was so needed. Like it was coming out of that. It was yet another reason why I was like, dude, I just got to do this full time. I got to invest in these relationships and just keep building, or else that's going to just fade away. And I don't want that to happen. Like
Yeah.
I want this to be my future. And I just know that. Like it's one of those things where a lot of people just they put out feelers and they just go wherever the wind blows them or whatever. But for me, at least at this point in time, it just seems like that calling has been very clear. Okay, this is it. And like I said, I had all these other businesses before, and I tried to sell T-shirts before. I tried to do supplements before. I tried to the truck project that was closer, but the R&D and all the stuff to get that to work was just way too much. And a couple of our co-founders moved out of state, and all these other reasons and stuff. But this man is just this is it like it and I just know that in my bones and it's such a cool feeling. So it's just been a really interesting past couple of years, I'll put it that way.
Brings a smile to my face, Tyler. And we pretty much answered all of my questions regarding the TI project. My
Yeah,
last question was going to be, where do you plan on taking it? But you've already explained it with a lot of these potential partnerships aligned up,
true.
these connections you've been building. And it
Yep,
really, from everything you've already mentioned regarding the project, it seems as if you have a very established future ahead for you. It's just a matter of connecting all the dots and seeing it out to its full fruition.
sure,
I'd love
yeah.
to transition this into kind of the final part of the show, and it'd
Okay.
be tell me about the Pathway to Freedom podcast.
Yeah,
What do you
man.
talk on this show, and what is it about? I'd love to come on someday.
Yeah, dude, I'd love to have you. Pathway to Freedom is it's a fairly new thing, and I think we've only had 4 episodes at this point in time, and there's been a big gap between the most recent episode and right now. I'm thinking the next episode will be either this weekend or the weekend after, but it's focused on entrepreneurship. That's the idea, and it's a Twitter Spaces, so it's not really a podcast per se, but it's kind
Gotcha.
of formatted like one. But we've Jake Claver, and we've had Dirk on there a number of times. He's pretty much a co-host at this point. We had XRPP on there once, but just we basically have each episode focused on a different topic within entrepreneurship, and just have a panel discussion about for between 30 minutes and an hour on that topic, and go into it with like personal anecdotes or just our take on it or what we've learned, and then we'll like open it up to the audience, and then we'll have special guests on occasionally that we'll bring onto the main panel who might be particularly relevant for that topic.
Sure.
And then we'll open it up to just the audience and have people ask questions or add their 2 cents. And it's been really nice so far. Like, it's been like we hadn't had the biggest turnout on some of these, but we had, I forget what it was, like almost 2,000 people tune into the
Wow.
episode 3 when
Good turnout.
no,
Turnout at all.
and it was like one of those crazy, just all out of nowhere. And I think most all that had to do with XRPP being on there because everyone's, what's he doing? Which is great. He was
Yeah.
hilarious the whole time. So we had a good time. But
Just satire.
yeah, exactly. We had some moments, and so that was fun. But yeah, like the first episode was about finding your why. I felt like that was a good place to start out. I think a lot of people jump into business and they don't really have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
And it's deadly to not know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. There's going to be a point in time where you hit a wall and you don't, and motivation won't get you through the wall. Like, motivation will get you a certain distance for sure. And it's a useful tool, but it's finite and it runs out. And so at some
Yeah.
point you have to rely on something more than that, which is deeper down. That's passion, that's determination, that's grit. And with that, without understanding your why, those things just don't exist. So that was where we started, and I felt like that was a really productive conversation. Um, and then I don't even remember the other topics we had. I might have to look it up, but we had some good discussions going on, and I
It's all
feel like
about entrepreneurship. That's all that really
yes,
matters. And
yeah,
if you're interested into that, potentially reach out and look into it.
yeah,
I'll
for
definitely
sure.
be joining that next
Yeah,
Twitter
man.
space that you're
I'd love to
posting.
have you. Yeah, I'll be announcing it at some point soon. I haven't decided if I want to do it. I know it's already Wednesday. Normally we do them on Sundays just because it's
Gotcha.
like a day where, most of the afternoon time. I figured that was the day that not a whole lot of spaces are going on, so it works. But really the whole goal behind it was like, obviously there's a ton of Twitter spaces going on in the crypto world, and they all have to do with crypto. And with what I'm doing, even though my focus is in the crypto space right now, I came about it from a different angle of not building out on the blockchain and whatever. I'm doing my own thing. And my kind of message is that you can do that too. And also to my point earlier, talking about people 15 steps ahead of you, like looking up to them and being like, why am I not there yet? That's also my mission, is to be like, I'm literally 2 or 3 steps ahead of you right now. If you've not even started yet, like, listening to where I'm at, I'm not an expert on much of anything. And there's a lot of things ahead of me that I know nothing about that I'm going to have to learn as I go. But this is me documenting my process as an entrepreneur, building this business. I'm 2 years into it. But if you want to get started, this is what I've done so far to catch you up. But this is also what I'm about to do. And I think that's a really relatable thing. I think it's something that's really interesting to people. It's different. It's something that's exciting. And yeah, so that's what I started out, and I don't really know where it's going to go, to be honest with you, but that's the idea. And it's
Just
been,
enjoy the ride. That's all I got to say. At the end of the day, just enjoy what you're doing in the present moment and just embrace it to its full satisfaction. I look at it when you're talking about just 15 steps ahead of somebody. I was just putting it into perspective. Potentially one step could just be 1 year if you think about it that way. And it really, people also like to say 10,000 hours is basically what it takes to kind of master something, a
sure.
craft of any type. And I feel as if 10,000 hours could accumulate within, say, 10 years. So that could be 10
Yeah.
steps to your right direction. But besides that, Tyler, this has been a true
Yeah.
honor to be able to host you. I appreciate your time. If there's any closing statements. that'd be the time to do so. But thank you once again for coming on the show today. It's been a true honor.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And this has been great talk, and I appreciate
Definitely.
the opportunity for sure. I'm trying to say yes to, because sometimes people ask me, can you come on to my podcast? I'm like, yes. I don't even, it's just like one of those things where why to even say no? It just, I think that this is such a great opportunity right now. There's a lot of people trying to build at the same time. And as a builder, I love to try to support in any way that I can, other people trying to do their thing. And I'm loving what you're doing, man. I'm going to check out your channel and
Appreciate that.
other videos and stuff like that and keep up with what you're doing as well. But yeah, in closing, tieproject.xyz is the domain. If you want to go check out the store, or tboone_8 is my handle on Twitter. If you wanted to check out what I'm doing and follow that story and process in the Twitter space that we just mentioned, Pathway to Freedom, it's pinned at the top of my profile, so you'll easily be able to find it, any announcements regarding that. And yeah, so that's where to find my stuff. And I don't know. I just want to encourage people to start a business, start a side hustle, make some extra money on the side. One of the things that I like to think about is I try to hold myself responsible for not only my being and future, but that of my family, because I think that we're about to experience some really turbulent and crazy times, and I think that we're well positioned for it, but a lot of people aren't, including a lot of our family members. And so I think that we have this kind of extra burden and responsibility to make sure that they're okay and make sure that they're going to get through this too. And so in light of that, is why I have this sense of urgency to really build this business right now, generate extra income and invest and do all these things that I'm doing, because I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know that if I'm putting my head down and building, not getting too caught up in all the minutia of it all and the day-to-day BS that we're seeing and unfolding on the political spectrum or whatever it is.
So much.
If you just tune that out and build, I think you're going to be in a much better place to be prepared for whatever happens, instead of watching the news and just getting absorbed by it. It's like, now just build and then you'll be prepared. Like it's that simple. And so that's my closing message, I would say, is just get out there and do it, man.
Think fast, build smart. Couldn't have said it better.
Absolutely,
well,
man.
Tyler, with that being said, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you all in the next episode. Peace.